I'm Martin Liebowitz, MD. I joined the faculty at Stony Brook in 1971 as an associate professor in the Department of Medicine and was promoted eventually to professor of medicine, a rank I held until I retired. And I remember my first trip. I was driving along, turned off from 347 onto Nichols Road, began driving north, and then on my right side there appeared the largest hole in the ground I had ever seen outside of the Arizona meteorite crater. And out of that large crater, of course, the Health Sciences Center emerged over the next 5 years. In the interim, everything about the school was conducted on the South Campus in low buildings that I think basically turned out to be temporary, that were totally surrounded by mud. You had to walk on planks. But it was there that the faculty gathered, and it was a small faculty, as you can imagine, to plan the opening of this brand new school. What was being planned was a truly innovative curriculum. First of all, it was going to be a 3-year curriculum. Now, the norm in those years was, and still today, a 4-year medical school curriculum. But in the early 70s, there was a lot of interest in the country, not just at Stony Brook, in having a 3-year curriculum and allowing students to move on sooner. We were going to have a 3-year curriculum. The other important innovation was early patient contact. The norm in those years, in virtually all medical schools, was to have patient contact begun in the 2nd year of the medical school, leaving the 1st year for the so-called basic sciences. But Stony Brook was going to pioneer, in a way, exposure to patients in the 1st year. And the third, and this is again the vision of Dr. Pellegrino, the incorporation into the curriculum of social sciences and medical humanities. The idea being to turn out a physician who was fully rounded and prepared to not only practice excellent medicine, but do so in a meaningful way in the community of the time. 24 students were chosen for the first class. They were interested, I think, in being pioneers. And they were pioneers because they were doing everything for the first time here. But what brought them, I think, to Stony Brook was the idea of being part of something brand new and interesting. They had heard about the curricular changes. Students were sent out to see patients before classes of any other kind began. Where were they sent? There was no university hospital. Dr. Pellegrino had reached out to all of the hospitals on Long Island, as I mentioned, and several had responded affirmatively. So the students, the 24 students, were apportioned out to those hospitals. 4 of them came to South Nassau, for example, for several weeks of patient exposure. They loved it. This is what they had thought about all their preparation time, and here it was. Continuing the theme of early patient contact came the Introduction to Clinical Medicine course. And again, the norm in those years was to begin that in the second year, after the students had a full grounding in anatomy, physiology, biochemistry. But here it was going to begin virtually from day one and run 1 day a week throughout the year. And they had instruction in how to listen to a patient, how to talk to a patient. And then as they learned anatomy during the year, how to examine a patient. The first dean, Marvin Kushner, was the perfect choice for a first dean. Marvin Kushner had been a professor of pathology at NYU. Dr. Pellegrino brought him to Stony Brook in 1968 to be the first chairman of pathology at the school, professor of pathology. And then in 1970, Dr. Pellegrino turned to Marvin Kushner and said to him one day, "You know, I've been dean long enough," meaning I, Dr. Pellegrino, have been dean long enough, now it's your turn. And he appointed him really the first functioning dean, as far as students are concerned, of the medical school. And Marvin Kushner was a man of remarkable qualities. Not only was he very smart and very learned in his field and in medicine in general, but he was humane, he was understanding, he was patient, and the faculty adored him. At the first graduation of the first class in 1974, as appropriate, as dean, he gave a bit of a talk. And he ended it by saying to the students in front of him, all 24, you've been given a good doctrine, forsake it not. And my thought was, if the dean quotes Deuteronomy at graduation, we are off to a very good start. It was wonderful for me to be there and experience the growth and enthusiasm that I found. Faculty were being recruited, excellent people being brought in, excellent research being done. It became clear that while the hospital was needed right from the beginning as a place to educate medical students, it became essential for patient care in Suffolk County. It became the hospital for what? For every high-risk delivery, for every burn case, for interventional cardiology, for innovation of every kind, for growth and for specialization. I've given thought to what have been some of the memorable moments in my experience of the medical school and of the hospital over the 50-year period. And of course, the first day of students arriving in August 1971, hard to forget that, memorable. The first commencement of that class in 1974, and I've already spoken about the dean and his remarks. The day that the University Hospital opened in 1980, and the first patients to arrive, the expansion of facilities, the expanded role in the Stony Brook community, the opening of the MART. In April of 2020, the pandemic, I thought about the words that Winston Churchill had used addressing the British people during the Second World War, when he spoke of their finest hour. And it's just possible that while many achievements lie ahead, April 2020 may very well be among the finest hours for Stony Brook Medical School and Hospital. The medical students are the good news. Just as they were in the very first years, they remain to this day a source of inspiration. They come because of a vision of patient care and patient service and the humanity that goes with those roles. And I have felt as pleased with the students I saw in 2000 as I was with the students I saw in 1970.